Nolan does this very clever experiment, but he does this very clever scene construction around silence and sound coupled together. And some extremely awful, haunting visuals, which essentially represent the aftermath of the bombs that were dropped on Japan.
Hello and welcome to this month's Film Club. My name is Oliver Webb-Carter and I'm the editor and your host. And today it's Oppenheimer, this year's major blockbuster directed by Christopher Nolan and starring Cillian Murphy. Tim Hewitt, acclaimed director, joins me for the most talked about movie of the year so far, and I'm aware of Barbie's existence. Robert Oppenheimer, the tortured genius and father of the atom bomb that changed the world, was indeed a historic figure, and even today we live under the threat of nuclear annihilation. As a child growing up in the 80s, this isn't new to me, but the ongoing conflict in Ukraine has reminded us all of the ultimate disaster should certain megalomaniacs go down that path. We've not mentioned any spoilers in the film, so you can listen if you haven't seen it yet, but that's enough fun and games. Coming up in next month's Film Club, it's Gallipoli, but until then I'll hand you over to our chat on Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. Tim Hewitt, welcome back to our latest Film Club, and this is Oppenheimer. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you very much. Very excited.
Yeah, so listeners, Tim and I, we went to see Oppenheimer on Monday. Today's Wednesday. I'm going to get this out for Thursday morning, this podcast. So it's hot off the press. We've only seen it once. And yeah, unlike all the other films that we've covered, we've seen a number of times. We're going off one viewing. And Tim's just mentioned this is the second Nolan film in the Film Club, so we might have to leave Nolan alone for a while. Although I think of his other films, I don't think any of the others really are historical.
No, I'm trying to think actually.
Maybe The Prestige, but it's all made up, so we don't.
Yeah,
really...
it's all.
Tesla's in it.
These are yeah. I think these are his only two actually based on historical fact. I'm trying to. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so no, and unlikely we'll be doing Interstellar on this podcast. So for Nolan fans, this will be it for a while. And we should talk about spoilers. I think if you didn't know that there were nuclear bombs and the two bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, then you're probably not a listener of this podcast. So I think on
I
the
doubt
whole...
it. I'm not sure you can really qualify spoilers in this. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything in the film that a viewer that hasn't seen it would think, I can't believe they mentioned that.
Maybe, maybe won't go into too much detail in the result of any kind of investigation that took place. And that might sound like a vague comment to listeners. It will become more apparent in our conversation, but maybe we won't give the actual result of that. But that's about the biggest spoiler I can think of.
I would say that when you mentioned that we've only seen it once, I think we can be forgiven for this one. It is the newest film on the podcast, and the most. I mean, obviously has only been in the cinema for 5 days, I guess now. So I think that's forgivable.
And I should also highlight, I'm basing some of my historical knowledge off of a very good book that's just come out a month or so ago, called Oppenheimer: A World Destroyed, and that's written by David Boyle. And I would recommend it to listeners if they want to dig in a little bit more, having watched the film, or if they want to read it before the film. It's only 128 pages. You can get it on paperback or Kindle. That's
shorter
read.
Than the script of the film.
I think so.
Which I believe was something like 180 pages. So
which is different to Dunkirk, the last Nolan film we discussed, which didn't even
75, I think. Yeah, I mean it's mainly visual, so there's very little dialogue. Warning to listeners: there is a lot of dialogue in Oppenheimer.
Yeah, and you have to concentrate. That's the other thing I'd say, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I mean, I would preface this whole episode with it's excellent news for cinema, for theatrical releases. This is, I mean, it's been all over the press. The fact that this film, along with Barbie, being released on the same day, they've really put cinema going back on the map post-COVID, which I think is great. And anyone who's been following it obviously will be aware of the fact that these aren't superhero films. They aren't sequels. I think the appetite is back for an event film that's a one-off. And it's great that Oppenheimer is it's a thinker. It's a blockbuster, but it's a thinker. And it's great that, the cinema we went, Ollie and I went to the Odeon Lux Leicester Square. We saw the 70mm presentation and it was packed. I mean, it was sold out, I think.
It was, yeah.
And that's a Monday night. This is like the old days, when...
it was a Monday night. That's a good point. Yeah.
It's like when a friend of mine reminded me recently that he went to see, when he was a child, he went to see Terminator 2 when it first came out. And that was the event. There was one off, it was one blockbuster every 7-8 months. Now, of course, they churn them out like candy, but it was great that this is kind of going back to like the old days of, there's a new film coming out in the cinema.
Well, yeah, the last film I saw in the cinema was Indiana Jones just a few weeks ago, and the difference between in the attendance between the two,
right?
Myself and my companion were the only two people in the cinema. And now you've mentioned the cast, and I'll just rattle off some names because I actually couldn't believe the number of names that just kept on coming. So obviously Cillian Murphy plays Robert Oppenheimer. Emily Blunt plays his wife Kitty Oppenheimer, and then you got Matt Damon as Leslie Groves, Leslie Groves was the military commander of Los Alamos, where all the scientists worked, and he oversaw the entire program along with Oppenheimer. You've Robert Downey Jr., who plays Louis Strauss. That's how it's pronounced. And Strauss basically became Oppenheimer's nemesis after the bombs were dropped. And then you got Florence Pugh plays Jean Tatlock, who's a sort of his first love, I think it's probably fair to say. Josh Hartnett was unrecognizable for a moment to me. Yeah, he's sort of this young, running through jungles and stuff, isn't he? No, I'm mixing him up with Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, no, he's
not George of the Jungle, is he?
No, he's not. That is Brendan Fraser. Well, he's popped up in lots of things. Apparently, he was considered for Batman as well, but it didn't obviously happen. Yeah,
he's good. He's very good in this. Casey Affleck, who plays this, he is so good in this really chilling role. Remy Malek, Kenneth Branagh, Benny Safdie, who's very good, plays Edward Teller, the creator of the H-bomb. Jason Clarke. Tom Conti plays Einstein. James Darcy, who was in Dunkirk. And Gary Oldman, Matthew Modine.
Florence Pugh, did you mention Florence Pugh?
Florence Pugh. Who played Henry Stimpson? James Remar.
James Remar, yes. Yeah, great.
Who's very good in 48 Hours.
Yes, he was the evil bad guy in 48 Hours, and it's so nice to see him. And he also pops up in Django Unchained, actually in two parts in Django Unchained. It's sort of a character role,
Sex
but
in the
this
City,
it was so good to see him in a role like this, which is a high government.
Henry
official.
Simpson, Secretary of State for War. So the cast is just extraordinary, really, and a lot of these parts are quite small because there's no doubt about it. Cillian Murphy dominates from beginning to end. It's a Nolan film, so he plays around with time as usual. So it's not linear, but it works very well. You just have to concentrate.
I didn't really know what to expect with Oppenheimer. I mean, I knew it was a bio film, but the fact that they kept, they were the critics and people who I know had seen it were going on about, it's just spectacular in its visuals, and I was thinking, well, apparently it's a lot of people talking in a room. So what's with the visual? So when we went, it's an assault on the senses a lot of the time.
It really is, yeah, absolutely. That's what I think that's what keeps the film ticking along, because it is 3 hours. And you mentioned this, I think, almost immediately on when you messaged me after you left to catch your train very quickly.
Yes.
It's 3 hours, so I don't think we got out of the cinema till 11 p.m. But the sound design, which keeps the film going throughout. To me, it was on edge almost because of the sound.
Absolutely, yeah. And the thing is that it comes at moments that are so unexpected. It's like a very quiet moment in a room, and suddenly it's like a planet has exploded in an instant, and I mean, our seats shook because
and I don't know, was that because the seat is meant to shake because it's the fancy seat,
because
or was it the sound vibrating?
It's the sound. It's the design. I think the speakers in these cinemas, like these. I mean, there's a huge cinema, obviously, and the speakers are enormous. So I think it's an added effect, so that you really. I mean, it's like you're in the film. Sometimes, to me, I thought Cillian Murphy was outstanding. I thought Downey Jr. was outstanding. I thought, well, to be honest, everyone in their little roles were brilliant. I just think the true star of the film was the sound design. It was phenomenal, coupled with some very haunting visuals. I mean, it tiptoed on certain occasions over like horror tropes. There were moments that if you isolated them, you'd be like, that could have been out of, I don't know, a terrifying horror film.
Yeah, in the immediate reaction, the immediate reaction of once they know the bombs are successful.
Yes, there's a very haunting sequence where Oppenheimer is invited and talks at a lecture where everyone's applauding him, but psychologically he becomes, you can see the guilt just completely written all over his face, and that during that sequence, Nolan does this very clever experiment, but he does this very clever scene construction around silence and sound coupled together. It's really and some extremely awful, haunting visuals, which essentially represent the aftermath of the bombs that were dropped on Japan. And I just thought it was brilliant. Funnily enough, actually, it's the sort of film that you would think, if you described it to anyone in terms of its content, that it should be boring, kind of like that, along the lines of JFK. But then they're so not boring. They're scintillating and exciting. Funnily enough, Nolan, I found out recently, screened JFK for the crew as a reference.
Really?
Which is quite interesting. And
JFK. That will be on our film club in November, listeners.
Yes, which I'm very excited about. It's one of my favorite films. But I was very surprised to hear when he said that he screened it, that he hadn't seen it since it had come out, I think, which kind of made me think, what's wrong with you? So yeah, and you can see the sort of parallels in its, of course, JFK plays around with time. It plays around with different film format. There's a lot of black and white in JFK and color. With Oppenheimer, it's black and white and color. Black and white signifies the Downey Jr. sections, which are very much from Downey Jr.'s point of view. The color is very much from Oppenheimer's point of view. And that becomes very clear. I don't think there's anything confusing about that. It's just, you just do have to listen and concentrate, as you say. I mean, the cast, one of the surprising standouts for me that I didn't expect, because the role is very simple, is Jason Clarke in I think it's 50, I can't remember the year, 54, 52.
This is the sort of Atomic Energy Commission evaluating Oppenheimer's security clearance.
It's security clearance. But Jason Clarke dominates much of it in terms of his questioning.
I think he's quite a big guy, but he almost, he's a huge figure in the screen. He sort of takes up the screen.
He really does. And he is so convincing. He's so good. And he's a New Zealand actor.
Is he?
Who often plays American. Yeah. He's never disappointing. He is always brilliant. And it's not an easy role, I don't think. He's really, really forceful. Well, actually, not just Oppenheimer, but the others who attend the
anyone
hearing
who
and the
seeks to defend Oppenheimer.
Yes.
Although the only person he struggles.
Yes, I was about to say.
So the only person he struggles with is Kitty, Oppenheimer's wife, played by Emily Blunt, and I think she's. I don't think it's news that she was an alcoholic, and early on in the film, you see her with a glass in her hand, which is always an indicator in any kind of film. If someone's holding a glass,
not only the glass, it's when their baby's crying, screaming, and then she takes hold of a bottle, and I think it's a close up of the, and it's obvious, but she is excellent in it, and I have to say, she is. utterly brilliant in those scenes with Jason Clarke, where she kind of gets the better of him. With just a look, she's very still. She doesn't really move. I mean, she's sitting down at the head of the table, and it's always interestingly shot with Oppenheimer behind her in the corner as he listens, and she dominates those scenes. I think she was really, really good. Overall, she's brilliant.
But I think Cillian Murphy in all these scenes where when his enemies and his friends are giving evidence in this investigation, which is taking place in a very small room, when he's not giving evidence, he's sitting in a sofa background. But even in those scenes, Cillian Murphy, your kind of eye is drawn to him.
It's the look. I mean, I don't know if it's a surprise. I think it's been mentioned a lot in critics coverage and just interviews with the cast. If you watch them on YouTube and stuff, there are a lot of shots of Cillian Murphy in close up, usually in silence, and it's just indicative of this turmoil that's going on inside him, guilt, regret, but just with a look. He's got ridiculously piercing eyes. Bastard.
He's our age, I think, isn't he? I think he's 47.
I think yes, he is. Yeah, he is.
During lockdown, he presented a really good radio show on, I think it was Radio 6, where he picked all the sorts of music I love. So I think Cillian Murphy and I would get on.
Because he's been around for I mean, I remember, the early days, 28 Days Later, and who's this guy? I mean, he was really
The Wind That Shakes the Barley is I think
Wind That Shakes the Barley, obviously.
Until watching this film was my favourite film of his.
Yeah. And the thing, he's always, way back, been one of my favourite actors. I was so gutted that I didn't get to see a play he did in London. A friend of mine, it was a one-man show, and a friend of mine saw him and said it was hands down the most incredible stage performance he's ever seen, and apparently he's amazing on stage. And so he has been around for a while, but it's sort of been craving that he lands a lead like this in a big film, and I think it's overdue, to be honest.
Well, I think I'm probably going to be unpopular with many listeners because I think he's been wasting his time doing Peaky Blinders.
That is slightly controversial because I'm quite a big fan of Peaky Blinders.
I'm afraid he's the only good thing about it.
I think it lost steam. I thought that it started really excellently. I did think that some of his supporting characters were good in Peaky Blinders.
I find it very lightweight.
Except for Tom Hardy, who to me tends to overact a lot.
Oh, I quite liked him in it, but I just find the whole show a bit lightweight. Some of the accents, but Brummie accents turn into South African accents.
You got to be very careful. Yeah,
but he is everything. He's good. He's great in Sunshine. It's The Wind That Shakes the Barley, which for historical listeners will be interested in because it's all about the Irish Civil War, made by Ken Loach, is just and it won the award at Cannes, I think.
I mean, if he doesn't get an Oscar nomination for this, I mean, let alone win, to be honest, I think he probably will. But I mean, I think there'll be an uproar because it's he controls the film. Nolan said to the supporting cast, I really need you guys to support Cillian Murphy, which I thought was quite an interesting way of putting it, because that's what they do really in the film.
He's in virtually every scene, and it must have been exhausting for him, actually.
Well, apparently it was
emotionally draining.
Yeah, I've watched quite a few interviews before and after we saw the film, but it's become not common knowledge that I think Damon says, we invited him to dinner every day with the car, and he always refused, or he just didn't come.
Really?
Because I mean, his diet thing was, I think, quite an important aspect to keep himself looking as if he's slightly wasting away. And he said, I just wouldn't have been very good company. And I mean, the burden on his shoulders must have been immense. So I think socializing probably wasn't prime agenda.
Because Matt Damon who plays Leslie Groves, this military figure who he's, I think in real life, and obviously in the film, but it's more known in real life, is that he was a sort of a conservative, whereas Oppenheimer was of the left. But the two made a great team, and even after the program had finished and the bombs had been dropped, Groves remained a staunch defender of Oppenheimer. despite their political differences. But Matt Damon is excellent as usual. He brings some humor to the film. So, I mean, I guess up to now we've been describing the film and it sounds like it's a bit of a sort of slog. That's not the case. And Groves provides plenty of humor in the film, as does Oppenheimer occasionally as well, actually.
Yeah, but so do others. I think so do other characters. You know, especially like when they built the town in Los Alamos and pre the Trinity test. You know, there's a lot of banter and a lot of digs at each other, and I think that another one that we mentioned, I thought Benny Safdie was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. What's he been in?
Well, he's one of the Safdie brother, the other Safdie brother who are directors. I mean, they made two outstanding films. One called Good Times with Robert Pattinson, which is like a heist, and Benny Safdie's.
That's excellent.
That's a really good one. And then their true, I would say, masterpiece is Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler, which they both directed.
I thought that film was brilliant, but I found it so stressful watching it.
I mean, that's the point. But that's why it's so brilliant, is because it is a stress fest. And listeners who haven't seen Uncut Gems, stop listening and go and watch Uncut Gems. Because
let's not get too hasty. But it's exhausting. It's exhausting watching that film. But,
it's exhausting, and it's hands down it's Sandler's best performance for me. And those two. So Benny Safdie is a great director with his brother, but he's a great actor in this. And Nolan said he called Paul Thomas Anderson to ask about Benny Safdie, who was in Paul Thomas Anderson's film Licorice Pizza, which is a very good film, to ask him, whether, what's the deal? Is he good? And brilliant that he cast him, because it's excellent. He also said that Benny Safdie was going to be a physicist. He was either going to be a physicist or a filmmaker, and he chose film.
I'm glad you mentioned the physics, because I'm going to stop here. So listeners, up until now, we haven't discussed the science, and I'm going to hold my hand up and own up. Mm-hmm. And I hope my parents aren't listening, because this will upset them, considering the amount of effort and money they put into my education, is that I got a U grade in my physics GCSE.
Wow.
Yeah, and unclassified. So I think I must have spelt my name wrong. But I was able to follow, I think, some of the physics in the film. In the how to blow up an atomic bomb. I think I got how you do it.
I don't think. Well, the thing is that
you don't need to know, obviously.
No, but they weren't talking. The good thing about Nolan's approach is that he didn't delve into the ins and outs of quantum mechanics in great detail.
But there are lots of scientists drawing on chalkboards,
like has been mentioned, I think, in some of the interviews. So was in Good Will Hunting. There's a lot of maths on the chalkboard, but even Damon didn't know what the hell it meant.
I did think of Will Hunting, the character from Good Will Hunting, whilst watching this film. Not only because obviously Matt Damon's in the film, but also Oppenheimer's a bit like Will Hunting in that he was brilliant at languages. There was no subject he didn't know about. I think Leslie Groves said there's nothing this guy doesn't know apart from sport. There's a great scene at the beginning, though, because he was a bit of a clumsy oaf, Oppenheimer, when he was younger, and it did remind me probably of my own attempts at science, where he sort of he knocks over a Bunsen burner or
a jar
a jar in his chemistry class, which
and then there's a lovely touch when he's in German and an American physicist takes a seat in the audience next to a German, and he says to the German, "Don't worry, I can translate for you if you need."
Dutch.
Dutch, Dutch. And then Oppenheimer starts his lecture in Dutch, which is brilliant.
He quickly learnt Dutch.
Yeah, like with 6 weeks or something. Yeah, he's a very likable character, I think. You really sympathize with him, regardless of, the moral choices that he had to make. Because the way the film's presented is very much in the, like Nolan says, they feel like they didn't have a choice. So you kind of side with, even though you there are occasions where you're like, seriously, what are you doing? You can't do this. But the argument with the race against the Nazis comes out as very valid in the film, I think.
Yeah, but I think, and I know that this is something that we should talk about, because it's debated long and hard, and I don't know your view on it, but about dropping the bombs on Japan. But the problem, I'm informed slightly, having read a few books recently about the American fighting in the Pacific before the bombs were dropped, and they were losing tens of thousands of men on small islands heading towards Japan. So they were prepared that if they had to go make an invasion of Japan, they would lose another 100,000. I think was the estimation of how many US troops. We know now that the Allies won the war, and we know now that America knocked Japan out of the war. But before the bombs were dropped, the Americans didn't know that they would whether the invasion would be successful or not, or whether they would lose.
Of course.
So you have to put yourself in the feet of Harry Truman, who made the ultimate decision. And so for me, I think it is justified.
Yeah, you can argue it's justified. Whether when you're watching the film, because the whole human loss on the American side really wasn't talked about too much. It was more to do with, okay, can you do this? Can you drop these two bombs?
Yeah, because it's a policy decision to be made by politicians, not scientists. Scientists don't decide whether to use the bomb or not.
And in fact, that's mentioned.
It is.
And the scene where Oppenheimer visits Truman, who is played by Gary Oldman, really very convincingly. Truman comes off as the antagonist in that scene, because of the way it's shot. You see there's a lot of close-ups of Murphy, and the disbelief and the way Truman puts it. I think he calls him a crybaby. Don't let that crybaby back into my office. And you don't make the decision. He just says it's. I think it's Truman who says it. Scientists don't make the decision.
I think he says something along the lines of, "Do you think anyone in Hiroshima gives a shit who created the bomb?"
And the thing is the way that's presented. You are required. You have to side with Oppenheimer. That's the way Nolan's doing it, I think. And when he leaves, I mean, he is a very humble character. When he leaves and walks out, he gives this kind of really innocent nod to, I'm assuming, a secretary. He's probably sitting at a desk. You don't actually see them, but he just gives this kind of thank you nod, which he does. He shakes the hand of Benny Safdie's character after Benny Safdie's kind of dissed him in the hearing.
And his wife remonstrates against him for being so gentlemanly or humble.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So he's so the bomb. When you put it, when we mentioned the amount of American soldiers that you only have to watch Mel Gibson's Hacksaw Ridge to know that it was almost a complete disaster. Yes, you can sort of understand. I mean, it's pretty awful. The bombs, I don't know, it's a very grey area.
But Japan was not intending to surrender. I mean, they were even going to mount a coup against their own emperor to continue the war.
So there we're talking about, well, in this situation, an atomic bomb is justified, which is, a very slippery slope. I'm not saying that I agree one way or the other. I'm just...
yeah
So that's what's interesting. That's what and it makes this is the what's interesting about the film and the whole discussion about this sort of thing.
It does it very well, I think.
Very much. We do need to talk about. Well, I'm not. We no spoilers. Like, for example, this could be construed as a spoiler, which I won't mention. But all I will say is the Trinity sequence. The test sequence is nail biting. For me, it was anyway.
I completely agree. Even though we know now everything works.
Yes. Well, exactly.
It was so exciting.
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So listeners, spoiler, it worked.
Yeah.
But that does not diminish the impact of
the
visuals. That is an extraordinary example of sound. And versus silence.
Yes.
The use he did, scientifically completely accurate in the sense of the speed of sound. That's all I'm going to say, is that it's It's so good. The
I'm
speed of
such an
sound
idiot
versus the speed of light.
scientifically that I thought, oh, wow, do nuclear bombs not make a noise?
Yeah, that's why,
That's why
it's
I got my U grade in
right.
physics.
Yeah, exactly. Speed of sound is slightly slower than speed of light.
Yes.
Just so you know. And it's so good, and it's like a showstopper sequence that it's the car chase of the film.
Yeah.
I think we should also mention Downey Jr. was
He
absolutely
does
brilliant.
a fake smile at one point in the film,
Mhm.
which is just brilliant. To do a fake smile when you're an actor playing someone who is acting to be happy, I guess.
Yes,
he does it brilliantly.
It's absolutely excellent, and it was really unexpected. Actually, I know the bit you mean. Thing that we should mention, I think, is that he, as you said, he became his nemesis. Starts off as being very amicable, and everything seems to be fine. But then once you realize what's happened, there's a great appearance by Rami Malek where he essentially just takes the biggest dig at Downey Jr. And Downey Jr.'s silent reaction is excellent as well. But then after that scene, you kind of want to go, oh, just get a grip to Robert Downey Jr. He sort of starts to behave like a spoilt child, which I just thought his performance was excellent. I'm betting he will be nominated for supporting actor.
I think Florence Pugh and Emily Blunt were both brilliant as well. So I think they'll probably. Do you think that? I mean, I think they should both get nominations.
I think Emily Blunt will be nominated. There is a point of. I think Florence Pugh's performance is very good. I'm still not entirely convinced that the scenes of a sexual nature. I'm not saying that they weren't done tastefully and inside the psyche of Oppenheimer himself. Still, perhaps you could argue that I'm not entirely sure that it was all necessary. I think it's a worthwhile argument. There's one bit that just stuck out a little bit to me because it's very, very obvious. It's shot in such an obvious way that the color sequences are Oppenheimer's point of view, the black and white sequences are Downey Jr.'s point of view. There's one sequence in the hearing where there's like a vision comes to Emily Blunt, which to me slightly detached from Oppenheimer's subjective POV, and it jarred just a bit. It went, oh, so now we're just for this little bit we're in Emily Blunt's mind, are we? It was along the lines that I stuck out for me because it reminded me of a sequence in Taxi Driver, which is the most subjective film you can possibly imagine. The entire film is from Robert De Niro's point of view. Nothing happens without him, really. And there's one scene in that where we're suddenly in a room with Harvey Keitel and Jodie Foster, where he's slowly dancing with her, and that was kind of like a famous scene that everyone went, oh, we're suddenly not in Robert De Niro's head. Now it's petty, maybe little argument, but that's the one thing that kind of stuck out at me when we were watching it. Florence Pugh's excellent. I mean, she's very, very good. It's not an easy, and it's quite a dark character. Happy Bunny, really, is she?
I'm not familiar with much of her stuff. I suppose. Am I? I don't think I am.
With Florence Pugh as well.
Midsummer. I've seen Midsummer.
Yeah. Lady Macbeth is what she became famous for, or at least, started her career, which was a quite good film. Right. But Florence Pugh was also in the Olivia Wilde film with Harry Styles and Chris Pine.
I like Chris Pine.
She's very good.
Okay, we spent about 40 minutes gassing, so our listeners probably itching to know our usual categories.
Oh yes. The awards.
Best performer, the Simon Baker Award.
Yeah.
So if listeners are wondering who the hell is Simon Baker, I need to go back and listen to Margin Call Film Club. The Simon Baker Award for Best Performance. It's Cillian.
Well, I mean, it's a bit. I think we'd be arrested if we said anything other than Cillian Murphy.
But he's so good.
I mean, it's.
I mean, he doesn't look like him, but he does in the film. But he also
his
doesn't.
Aging and youth what's
Yeah.
the youth version of aging?
So Cillian Murphy's got these gorgeous cheekbones and
Mm.
these piercing blue eyes, as you say. But it's the way I don't know if it's the way it's shot or the black and white helps, but it does help. It's sort of because Oppenheimer's got a rather pointy face, and maybe it's the angle that Nolan shot it at. And he almost merges into Oppenheimer on in some scenes, or maybe my head playing tricks.
Well, I think he also studied. I mean, his posture and his
the
stance
accent was very good as well. Yeah.
The accent was excellent, and
the
stance with
Oppenheimer's from a sort of quite a wealthy Upper East Side Jewish family.
But it's sort of like a relatively old-fashioned American accent. It's not that kind of modern, well-spoken American that was very prominent in those days, early days. You can also hear in the old 40s films. But his stance, with the hands on the hips, which was very him.
Costume was just everyone's outfits were thick woolen suits.
Excellent, and the design,
the way they hang off the trousers, the way they hang off the trousers and the tailoring was excellent. Right,
definitely Cillian Murphy. Let's just reiterate there.
Absolutely. Most unlikely scene. Now, the only thing I was going to say was there's a bit, and this might be considered a spoiler, but I'll be very quick, listeners, so you can sort of mute. But I thought the scene with the president, there was a line that the president gave that wasn't given in the film. I was a bit disappointed by. So when Oppenheimer said to Truman, "I feel as though I have blood on my hands," and when he leaves the office, the last thing you hear is Truman saying to his colleague, "Get that crybaby out of my office." The other thing that Truman said, which is quite well known now, he says, "What the hell does he think I have on my hands?" Because Truman made the decision, and if anyone was going to have blood on their hands, it was Truman.
Well, I mean, Truman would have said that probably after Oppenheimer left.
Yes, you're right.
And of course, we don't see Truman without Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Because that would take the subjectivity away. So, but an unlikely scene in terms of that didn't happen. Like an Argo.
Yeah. There's no
that we talked about.
There is the Argo Award for most unlikely.
Actually, exactly. So
when they lie about the embassies that were approached.
Whereas, can something qualify that didn't happen? That should have happened as an unlikely scene, or a scene that's in the film that you say.
It's both actually, because I put this category in because so many historical films have got a scene in it where you go, "Oh, that just didn't happen." But as you say, also there are some scenes where you go, "Oh, that doesn't make any kind of sense." But I'm struggling to think of anything else.
Yeah, and also, we've only seen it once.
Yes. Yes.
Definitely need to see. There's one of the things that I was saying before I think we started. I want to see it very soon again. It's something that I think it's because it's so rich.
But this is a Nolan film that I think is the one I've enjoyed most, having seen it only once, if that makes sense.
That's a very good point. For me, it's my favorite film of his, I think, still has to be Memento, because I just think it's brilliant. So I know a few people, friends of mine, who've gone to see Oppenheimer, and they come out and go, "Yeah, you know what? I think this is his best film." That is an argument to say.
I think I would agree with them.
But I think it may be his second best film. Because I still think Memento is absolutely amazing.
To watch that again, I think I've only seen it 2 or 3 times.
But it requires. Do you think that Nolan's films require more than one viewing? For sure.
I think all of them do. But Oppenheimer, I would say, if I never saw it again, I'd be disappointed. But I enjoyed it so much that I'm happy that it would be only once. Whereas Dunkirk, after I'd first seen it, I was a bit unsure about it. I wouldn't have raved about it like I've raved with Oppenheimer.
Also, the one thing that I should add to listeners is, please don't wait to see Oppenheimer on a television. You really do need to go see it in a big, not necessarily the biggest screen imaginable, but you need to see it in a place where the effects of the sound design really, I mean, they slice through your body. And there's a remarkable end final image and a final line. Actually, it's extraordinary, very powerful, and perfectly relatable. I mean, you kind of think, you're spot on, Mr. Oppenheimer. Won't give anything away, no spoilers, but.
So what do we think?
I mean, I really don't know. You're gonna have to pull one out of the bag.
I think best scene maybe. I think it might have been halfway through, and I think it might have been the bomb test. And I don't want to go into too much detail.
I agree, because the thing is that it's the sort of film where you could go. There, one scene stuck out. Apart from the Trinity test, there's one scene that stuck out that was perhaps two, but there he does this thing. Where I won't get this really isn't giving anything away, but Nolan does this thing where there is someone talking in a very quiet room, and it's nothing more than a very simply shot conversation, and he sticks on a sort of hallucinatory build of rumbling sounds, shaking walls, as if a bomb has just gone off in the middle of a conversation that no one's aware of, and they just carry on talking. And it is so effective. And I don't think it's been done before on screen like this, that I would argue there's a scene in it that I thought, and it's Jason Clarke becoming more and more insistent and forceful, pointing at Oppenheimer, berating him. And he does this effect. And I thought it was brilliant. That would probably be, I would say, a very close second to the Trinity test.
Yeah. Okay. Now, legacy. Now, at the beginning of this conversation, you said that this is the film that maybe has saved cinema. So I think legacy rating is going to be high.
Yeah. Now we're not even a week into its release, so.
But I think it's already made its money back.
It has. No, it needs 400 million. Apparently to be profitable.
I thought it cost 100 million to make.
Yeah, but that was the production budget. They also had 100 million marketing, I believe. I think those are the figures, but it's on track to be very profitable, I would say. Absolutely. There's no doubt. What is interesting is that it would be nice to see what happens when the hype has died down, and whether there are a hell of a lot of people going to the cinema simply because they've heard that this is a great film, because, it's not the sort of film that would attract everyone. A physicist, a biopic of a physicist who, created the atomic bomb. But I think so far, the legacy is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty probably high. Too soon to judge. And before we finish on Oppenheimer and recommend listeners go and see it, are there any other standout performances you wanted to mention? I just did think Casey Affleck's was so chilling.
Yeah, it's a great. Saw an interview with Robert Downey Jr. who said that he thinks it's the best. It's the most impressive cameo in the last decade. Scene. It's so understated, and then you slowly realize what Casey Affleck's doing, and he is excellent in that. I mean, he really is great. Very, very low key, but gets under your skin. It's just brilliant. It's really good. And Oppenheimer kind of you can see that there's like this trepidation. They're just sitting in a room, I think. I seem to remember, like opposite each other.
He's the head of the program, but he this sort of nervousness. This is the incident that kind of was, if there were a smoking gun, and there wasn't, because there is no evidence that Oppenheimer was ever a communist. He mixed with communists, but he himself wasn't. But if there were ever a smoking gun, this is the incident where he is kind of caught out. I don't want to say too much because it probably is.
Yeah, you don't want to delve too deeply. But
okay, well, that's fantastic. That's been Oppenheimer. Wonderful film. Highly recommend it. And that's our film club of the month. Next month in August is Gallipoli. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been great. Please go see Oppenheimer, everyone. let's see what the reaction is. I'm sure that your listeners will be impressed. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. You know where you can get hold of us? It's history@aspectsofhistory.com.
Look forward to all your comments.
Thanks so much for listening. This Saturday, I'm speaking with Michael Smith on the special relationship between US and UK spy agencies, both the good and the bad, and plenty more great history to come. Please share with friends, but until then, thank you and good night.